Good evening, Tigard. Thank you for joining me tonight. As a reminder, you can submit questions in the chat box throughout tonight's conversation. And if you miss any part of the discussion, you can rewatch it on the city's YouTube channel. I want to give you a couple updates before we open up the conversation. That'll give you a minute to send your questions as well. So one heads up that I want to give Tigard residents and that you may have some questions about is our utility rates. We had the City Council, in response to COVID-19, had decided not to take action on increasing utility rates on the normal schedule, which we would have done last June, but we're getting to a point where things are not sustainable. And so utility rates starting in January are going to be increasing by 5% or about $6 per household. Again, this increase was planned for July of 2020, but we postponed it. The additional funds are required to pay for inflation and go towards maintaining our pure and safe drinking water, protecting our streams and rivers in Tigard, and maintaining high quality roads, and providing accessible spaces for all residents, accessible outdoor spaces. With that, though, the City Council wanted to make sure that if you are struggling with paying your utility bills, we actually expanded the financial assistance program and extended it through June of 2021. So while we are increasing rates a small amount, we are also making sure that people that are unable to pay entirely have the support that they need. So if you have any questions about that, the council spent a lot of time discussing and evaluating what and how we wanted to approach that, and came to a decision that I just outlined. So another topic to cover is taking a survey about what makes a great neighborhood. The city's committed to making great neighborhoods accessible to everyone. We are looking toward the future and planning for the right housing types, transportation options, and commercial opportunities. And to do that, we need to hear from you. Your feedback will help us meet the needs of Tigard's current and future community members. So make sure you check that out. Also want to chat a bit about Tigard's transportation needs. We also want to know how Tigard's transportation system can get you from where you need to go to, or from where you are to where you need to go, whether you're walking, bicycling, riding transit, or driving. We love our community and we want to maintain and enhance our quality of life over the long haul. So we are embarking on a transportation system plan update, and part of that is going to be soliciting your feedback. So let's see, there's a New Year's resolution to start a new business or grow your current one. If that's a New Year's resolution for you, there's an opportunity to join an event on the 10th of December for a free lunch hour webinar presented by TIE of Oregon, Venture Catalyst, to learn about resources to help you achieve your dreams. So that's another opportunity. So with that, I am ready for your questions. I will also share that tomorrow night we are going to be doing a virtual tree lighting with the Tigard Downtown Alliance hosting. I will be participating and speaking. This is a virtual, socially distanced type of event that will include Santa. So just to make sure everyone's clear on that, we are not missing out on our Santa appearance this year for our tree. All right, so community questions. The first one I see is, what's the latest on the city's response to COVID? The city continues to work in partnership with the county, public health officials, the state, and because the county is really the lead on public health, we're following the direction that we receive from our public health partners. And you may also be aware that the governor in the last week has outlined, I think, a more sustainable approach and a more clear communication approach to making sure everyone knows where we're at with COVID risks by county. And so I would take a suggest you take a look at that. It's more of a matrix type of document that kind of like the fire danger, low, medium, high, super high, extreme type of matrix that communicates based on where a county is in each of those areas for COVID risk, what they can or what they need to do to best protect against spreading COVID in the community. We have a question, will there be additional funding for small businesses like Tigard Bowl? And we actually approved that at the council meeting on Tuesday night of this week. So yes, there is additional funding, particularly we asked, the council made some adjustments to the staff recommendation to prioritize way more highly, because the staff were going to prioritize businesses that were closed entirely. That we asked the staff, or directed the staff, to prioritize businesses that are closed much higher. So that's an update there. If there are specific questions about the areas of the city's response to COVID, please submit those into the chat. So Stephanie Hartman says that downtown Tigard needs an ice cream shop. And someone else is saying preferably small, family owned versus a corporate chain. So this was very near and dear to my heart. This may be something Tigard residents don't know, or not all of you know, but ice cream, I take ice cream very seriously. So much so that it was actually in my wedding vows, and you can verify that with my wife or the hundreds of people that attended my wedding. So I would be supportive of as many ice cream shops as the city can support, and businesses can be successful. I like all kinds of ice cream. So, and Christy, I absolutely agree that preferably a small or family-owned versus a corporate chain would be preferred. Question coming in: did I stay home for Thanksgiving? I saw a lot of other elected officials traveled. I think I answered, this was asked in one of the, I was actually asked by the Tigard Times beforehand, and my family celebrated Thanksgiving at our house with my wife and our 3 children, and we, for the first time ever, did not have a bunch of family, and we also did not travel. So I think we felt that was the most responsible thing to do, and we do not want to contribute to the health demise of any of our elderly relatives, and anybody that would have come would have been in that category. So we're trying to not only do the right thing, but also, as best we can, demonstrate what we're hoping others do. We got some questions about the school resource officer program, and will the program continue? And the school district, the Tigard City Council, and the Tualatin City Council all had a joint meeting on Monday night of this week that was about 2.5 hours long, and I'm confident that if you'd like to go review the details of that, and we'll rewatch the video, that's available on the school district's website. The short answer to the question is that I think where things are headed now, best I can tell from the school district's decisions, and the school board deliberated a fair bit, they are moving forward with a pretty comprehensive review and redesign of the program that will better lay out the objectives, metrics, measurements, and accountabilities of the program, and then design the program around what those objectives are. The program's been, I would say, less structured than that in the past, and bringing that level of oversight and diligence, I think, will be a positive move forward for the program. So we have a question from Anna Jensen, or a statement, perhaps. She needs sidewalks down, or we need sidewalks down Murdoch Street going towards Templeton Elementary and Tualatin Middle School. So Anna, that is absolutely an area I'm quite familiar with. I have a child that attends Tuolity Middle School, I guess right now from my home, but she normally attends in person. And I've been on the Templeton campus hundreds of times. I would acknowledge that there are many, many, many places in the city of Tigard where we need sidewalk infrastructure. And we have actually done an inventory of that. One of our city councilors, City Council President John Goodhouse, has been, for many years, been a champion for really figuring out how to build out our sidewalk network even more robustly than it is now, which again, there's a lot that needs to be done. To put a sidewalk, and this is kind of a rough estimate from about 3 years ago, it would cost to put sidewalks everywhere in the city of Tigard where there aren't sidewalks now, where there should be, is about $100 million capital investment project. So we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars or $100 million to spend on sidewalks. We do try, and we have a pretty robust process of prioritizing the projects that we can, or prioritizing the money we do have to get the projects done that will have the most benefit to our community. So that is right now the best we can do with sidewalks. I would also say that, Anna, if you want to engage our staff in more detailed conversation, they can provide you, and I'll ask the staff that are here to make a note of this and follow up with you with information specific to that and figure out whether that's on our capital improvement plan, and if so, when it might be funded. They can answer a lot more details about that since our capital improvement program is so robust. I don't have all that memorized, but they can certainly look that up for you and answer additional questions. The Youth Advisory Council has a question for me. What do you think the government should be doing to stop the spread of COVID? So the government is kind of a broad term, but I think we know from basic science and disease, really the way disease is spread, that we know how to stop respiratory transmitted and aerosolized diseases, airborne diseases, and certainly wearing a mask everywhere in every environment is something that would be very beneficial and something that could help. I think we're also going to have to continue to enforce, or I guess enforce is not the right word. I would say make sure that we're emphasizing small groups and not gathering in large groups. The evidence is very clear that where COVID-19 is being transmitted, and it's in indoor or outdoor, but now in the winter, at least in Oregon, more indoor, large family gatherings where people are not necessarily wearing masks. That's a prime example. And so, we need to, all of us collectively, it's not just the government. I mean, the government can help inform everybody about, what the evidence and the science says and make public health suggestions and directions, but ultimately it's up to all of us to take those actions, like my family choosing to stay home and alone for Thanksgiving. Okay, the Tigard Triangle neighborhood. What's the status of the Tigard Triangle project since the defeat of the Southwest Corridor project? So I would clarify that the funding measure that was defeated was not just about the Southwest Corridor project. That was about 20-ish% of the overall projects that were planned. If you look at the total amount of money that the local region was going to spend on transportation projects. So just to clarify that, we are still very confident that the Tigard Triangle is an excellent place and a ripe opportunity for redevelopment, and you'll see the private sector thinks so too now, because there are many numbers of new and exciting housing and retail projects that are already underway in the Tigard Triangle. The other thing I would add around the funding measure is that, it is not uncommon for the first funding plan to not be successful at the ballot box with a package as large as what was put before voters. I also think the primary reason for defeat, I think we talked about this, I was asked a bunch of questions about this politically last month right after the election. That had a lot more to do with the funding mechanism itself. And I think that, and I would encourage the Metro Regional Government and our whole region to be more thoughtful next time about the funding mechanisms and really put more diligent work into that, so that whatever comes forward as the way to fund all those transportation improvements, which are desperately needed, don't face really dramatic opposition from the business community, which, it is hard enough to pass a new money measure, and to do it when some of your largest employers in the region are opposing it is problematic. So you watched that happen. I think I'm pretty confident that almost nobody living in the Portland metro area between August and November did not hear the term "stop the metro wage tax," and that's you all knowing that line or that tagline, and my 9-year-old walking around saying it after he saw it on YouTube videos. That is why that measure was defeated. So I think that we can do better. Next question: has the police department been using the funds from the police services levy? What are the plans for using the funds? So we absolutely have been ramping up hiring. The chief has been working really hard on recruiting and making sure that we staff up. Calls in the police department, certain types of calls, both crimes against people and crimes against theft and things like that, are up pretty significantly during COVID time. Some of that's due to societal stress, and also family environment, family stress, and financial stress. So the chief's been working very hard at that, and we actually have information that we can post in the chat that provides really specific information on the status. That's actually updated every month by the chief, so we can provide the most current one of those in the chat. Let's see, we've got another question from the downtown neighborhood. Are you hearing from a lot of local businesses who are struggling? We are, and that's in part why we've been working so hard as a city to try to support our local small businesses, in particular with our financial assistance programs for business. And we just approved on Tuesday night the latest round, which is at least $1 million, maybe a bit more. We're working out some details with Washington County. So my advice to the people of Tigard is to support your local small businesses, and really consider whether you could purchase the same item at a similar price locally instead of ordering online. And our local businesses, particularly in downtown but all over the region, have taken many actions to make sure that they're safe to shop in and that they are accessible, and you can go and, from many of them, you can go and pick up items in a way that it would be very similar to a no contact type of delivery. So I would really encourage our residents to support our local small businesses. Do we have other questions?
You got one here.
When will the Public Safety Advisory Board begin? I believe the answer to that is Monday, December 14th at 5 p.m., I think. It's either 5 or 5:30 p.m. I know that because I think I'm not gonna regularly attend them. I don't think that's appropriate, but I am gonna do a little, maybe a little motivational speech and a thanking everybody for participating at the first session. So, Anna asks, do you think we will ever have a community recreation center in Tigard? So that's asking, I take the content of questions very seriously, and that's sort of in perpetuity, will we ever have a community recreation center? I would guess at some point in the next 100 or 200 years, certainly that will happen. And if you're asking more sooner than that, I would just say that the last vote where that was kind of started and put on the ballot by one of our former city councilors, Mark Woodard, that had some community support, but it got defeated at the ballot box by 65-35 approximately, give or take. Might have even been 67-33% in favor, and so that's not something that is the community's willing to at least pay that much for right now. I think there's a lot of questions about, and that proposal really lacks some specificity. To be successful, you really need to be able to demonstrate to the community exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it. And that proposal back in, I'm going to guess that was 2015, maybe 2016, really just didn't have that kind of specificity that would be needed. So I don't think it will happen soon. I also don't think people are in Tigard. I don't hear people wanting to spend the money needed to join the Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District, though we get asked that question a lot. Their just the tax rate for Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, just for that part of their program, is almost half of our entire permanent tax rate. In fact, it may be more than half. So to put that in perspective, the city of Tigard provides, like 10 major services or more, and including parks and recreation. So being part of Tualatin Hills, as an example, is a very expensive proposition. Let's see, Brett Llewellyn, there's a crying emoji here, a crying laughing emoji. Who won the presidential election? I am pretty confident from what I've seen that Joe Biden won the presidential election. Louise, there seems to be more homeless people around town. Is council doing anything proactive to address this? There's more than just the city council. The entire city staff, our police department actually spends quite a bit of time along with our code enforcement team. And it's more than just, and I want to make sure this is understood well, that our objective is to be compassionate and connect people to services in the community that are helpful to them. We've had many success stories where we have people that have been homeless in Tigard that have gotten connected both to services and treatment, and or ended up in permanent housing, or transitional housing and then permanent housing. And so that's really what we try to do. I think that, and I've certainly noticed in communication in the last probably month, that there's been and I think this is partly a result of the weather and partly a result of some of the decreasing resources available from, as COVID has sort of moved further along, that there are less options for homeless to get refuge right now. And so that's challenging. The county has set up a number of resources that include sort of, I'm going to call it semi-permanent temporary housing on the site of the county fairgrounds, and I think they've changed the name of that site now, but what used to be known as the county fairgrounds. And there is lots that's happening to try to help homeless people in Tigard, and then there's a ton that's happening regionally, and we're participating in that. So Lori is asking if Beer-a-Cat is a real cat in Tigard, and if so, who owns him or her? That's fascinating, and the fact that I've ridden in a car with Beer-a-Cat, or a fake car I should say, an animated car. I actually don't know the answer to this question.
Real cat.
Real cat. Beer-a-Cat is a real cat. Does Beer-a-Cat really live in Tigard?
I don't want to comment on that, but he is a real cat.
Okay, it's a real cat. Connie, yes, I live right around the corner, and sidewalks would be welcomed on Murdoch Street. Okay. Yep, there are. That is a feeling that is shared frequently in Tigard, probably second or third right after people being frustrated with traffic congestion on Highway 99W. Kyle, what were the council goals for 2020, and what are some goals for next year? So we actually set council goals every 2 years, and the reason we do that is we set them when a new city council has been seated. So by that I mean like a set of 5 people, 4 city councilors and the mayor. And so our last goal setting happened in January. Actually, I think it happened in February of 2019. And we are just at the completion of that. There is a very robust status update that we receive, report out at council, and I'm confident our staff can get that to you, Kyle, to show you kind of line by line what our goals are and what we have achieved. On your question about goals for next year, I certainly have my own thoughts, but again, we will have a new council because we have current Councilor Tom Anderson leaving the City Council, and then we have a new City Councilor, Jeanette Shaw, who will be joining the City Council. And so because of that, we will be revisiting and setting new council goals for the next 2-year period or cycle. So there will likely be a few, once you review the update that we'll send you, you'll see that there are probably a few that will need to be continued, but we've made a lot of progress, actually, kind of a shocking amount of progress on our council goals. I think most of them are either well on their way or almost completed and or done already. So the staff have done a phenomenal job of implementing our council goals. David has a comment. We love Tigard. Excellent, as do I. And keep up the great work, elected officials. Okay, we will continue to do our best there. Anna is saying this is her first time watching and thanking us for doing this. Anna, you're welcome. And we view this, I should mention this. We have always, for many years, the mayor has hosted fireside chats. They're normally done in coffee shops, or we've even taken some to some local pubs as well in the evenings, and usually they were held on Thursday nights. Actually, on this first Thursday, we would advertise them. We would only, we would typically get, anywhere from maybe 3 to 15 or 20 people, probably at the absolute maximum. I can remember one right after I was elected mayor where there was like standing room only. In fact, I'm thinking about that room from a COVID perspective. That would never happen now. It was packed at Symposium Coffee, and there was a lot of questions, a lot of people that wanted to meet me after I'd become elected mayor, and so we have tried to continue this process and keep the dialogue open through the time of COVID, and so this is what it's ended up looking like, and we're continuously adapting. We had been broadcasting these as an example of our continuous improvement. We've been broadcasting these with a simple iPad that was faced at me. Didn't provide the best video quality and kind of looked a little funny in the background. And tonight we actually have, I think, one of our IT staff that is here who's using his own equipment to help have a better experience. So I think does some professional photography on the side. And so if you can, I haven't seen what I look like tonight. I don't have the same feedback I normally get from the iPad. So I hope I look better. Maybe you can see all the imperfections on my face tonight. I don't know. Let's see, Tom, are we any closer to, sorry, I'm going back to questions. Tom is asking, are we any closer to hiring a city manager? We are. The city council has already begun its review of city manager applicants and made some initial selections of sort of a group of semifinalists, and there will be a process that they're participating in, and we will use multiple steps to get to a final candidate. One of the things we're really having some challenging times figuring out how we want to hire in this time of COVID, because we don't want to contribute to the traveling and things that may not be safe for us or safe for candidates, and yet also not hire someone having never met them in person. So we're trying to balance all that. It's a challenging time to be recruiting a city manager when you really want to be, relational and interacting with people, but we're going to do our best. We are also, I think the council has decided we are not going to hire a final candidate without meeting them in person, which I think is the right thing to do. But we're going to try to avoid bringing, the typical process might have six final candidates or up to six come and, host a bunch of town halls in person. We're going to make sure there's opportunity for public input, but it's not going to be in person like that. For those that were around during the police chief hiring, that would have been the process we would have probably used, and that had 6 people in our town hall area interacting with hundreds of people, and that's just not possible now. Okay, we have another question. What's planning on being built at Sears at Washington Square Mall, and what's the timeline on that? So I have a general understanding of what is being planned there. What I don't know is what impacts COVID may have had about whether what's going to be built would be phased or started later, and therefore I don't know the timeline, and I certainly don't know sort of a now that COVID's happened type of timeline. But my understanding is that the owners of Washington Square are planning more of a lifestyle retail, movie theater, lots of boutique-y type restaurants along with housing, all integrated in at that site is the best description I can give you for what they have planned in that general area of Washington Square. Again, timeline I think is extremely unknown at this point, and even less certain with COVID. Kate shared that it's always great to hear my perspective. Well, thank you, Kate. I always appreciate hearing from you, and I even like walking by your library in front of your house and looking at what you got in there. So good to hear from you. Brett, Congress is discussing appropriating money for state and local communities. Is there any COVID-related shortfalls in Tigard's upcoming budget? What's interesting about federal funding always is what the details come out to be and what the restrictions are. So in the first round of the CARES Act funding that was distributed to states and then all jurisdictions with 500,000 or more people directly, so Washington County got an allocation, there were a lot of strings attached to that money, including the fact that it could not be used to to address or deal with revenue shortfalls for a jurisdiction, which is an interesting problem because COVID certainly has caused those in many governmental entities. Tigard has not had a ton of those because of the way that most of our funding comes from property taxes, and we don't have robust park and rec programs or things that would have been canceled. We do have a park and recreation program, but most of it is not funded by user fees, and we don't have a lot of large fixed expenses. So we've not had huge challenges there. What we do want to be able to do is be there for our local businesses, both in business support and aid, our residents, which again, we've got a program that's robust there. But we want to make sure that we can continue offering that money as long as is needed. And so those are the kinds of things that would be the highest priority for us, along with making sure that anyone in the community that doesn't have appropriate personal protective equipment can obtain it for free. So those are the kinds of things that we would most likely be doing with additional money for state and local entities. And then, we have had some revenue reductions as a result. And so those are things that we would love to be able to do, but traditionally that, at least in the prior CARES Act funding, that was not permitted. So Brett, I hope that's helpful to answer that. Do we have some other questions rolling in here? I want to hear how this new camera looks to the public, so send us your messages about that. Is this much better than if you've watched before, is this equipment much better that we're borrowing from one of our staff? Let's see, is the Tigard Street Heritage Trail open? I believe so. Yes, it is. Let's see. We have other questions. I do want to thank everybody again for attending tonight, and I'll give you another 30 seconds to a minute to get any of your final questions in, and if we get a bunch of additional ones, we'll stay broadcasting. But if you don't have additional questions, I'm not gonna keep you extra tonight. Go do something fun, or reach out to a family member or a friend who might be in need. Let's see, Christy has a question about whether Tigard tries to recruit businesses, shops, and restaurants to the city. We do. We have an economic development manager, and we certainly try to do that. I think what I've learned over time is that is a long-term strategy and a complicated one. That is, it's also, and I think I've shared this before, but I'll share it again, that I think that I've learned over time that when we're trying to recruit businesses in particular, we're really competing with other parts of the country, not with, Beaverton or Hillsborough. We all as a community, we have residents that work in those jurisdictions, and they have people that work in their jurisdictions and commute to Tigard. And so, and that's actually a perspective that's changed a lot for me since I've become an elected official and learned a lot more about recruiting businesses and how our region does that, and how we really do try to approach it regionally. But with that said, we are very happy when we can help get businesses into our community that maybe choose us. And our economic development manager actually responds to many requests every month from businesses that are asking for information about available land. Large employers or large businesses that are looking to relocate. Right now, we have one probably large undeveloped site that we've actually had the city has taken upon itself, along with support from state and federal, the federal government, to get infrastructure set up for, and that's in the Hunziker Industrial Core. But other than that, we don't have a lot of we don't have a lot of large either land or even buildings where a large business would come in. So I know that wasn't your exact question, but I think that's worth noting. So I'm seeing lots of feedback from 4 or 5 different people, including City Councilor Heidi Lube, good evening, that looking much better. So thank you for loaning us your equipment. And do we have any other final questions, Kent?
Just people remarking about your appearance being really good. So.
Oh, even more of those. Okay. I'll give you another 20 or 30 seconds for questions, and then I will say goodnight, Tigard. So I want to give you one last opportunity. All right, Tigard, thank you, and have a good night.